Taiwan's two main parties remain sharply divided on the country's relationship with China. And candidates in the upcoming elections have drawn their ballot numbers. We find out what this means for voters.
It's been decades, and Taiwan's migrant workers are still calling for government protections. But what's changed?
Plus,
for International Mountains Day, we take a look at how Taiwan's peaks are facing an uphill battle.
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Taiwan's freight ties with China are in the spotlight as the presidential race nears its final month. Taiwan's two main parties have always been sharply divided on China, and as the election nears, that rift is once again coming to the fore. John Van Tres reports.
Flanked by lion dancers, presidential candidate Ho Yo-i takes to the stage. The lion dance is an old Chinese tradition that, like many things Chinese, has made its way to Taiwan through waves of immigration and exile. And it's these links with China that dominated the campaign trail over the weekend. China claims Taiwan and has threatened to invade it. The question of how to deal with this threat is the long-running source of friction in Taiwan's politics. Ho's Kuomintang was founded in China, and though forced to relocate to Taiwan, still has an affinity for Chinese culture and history. Ho wants to patch things up with Beijing after several years of high tension. He wants to start with talks on non-political issues. And he wants to stop what he sees as a move by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party to take Chinese content, including its history and classical literature, out of Taiwan's school curriculum. It's a divisive issue here, one that was most recently raised by a teacher at a leading high school during an angry press conference.
你要看到老师跟家长的欢乐，也不要用你们的政党高层所有的力量来攻击一个老师。
The DPP has a sharply different view of China. It's wary of Beijing's ambitions and promotes a Taiwanese identity. Its candidate, Lai Ching-te, says keeping Taiwan out of China's orbit is the only way forward. And he says giving his party another 4 years in the presidential office is the way to make sure that happens.
香港的民主已经破坏去了，自由嘛已经无存在，因此经济嘛受到真大影响。咱一定要坚守咱的民主。在蔡英文总统领导之下，咱已经有信心。
But it hasn't all been about China. The Taiwan People's Party's Ko Wen-je wants to become the first president in Taiwan's history not aligned with either major party. He has kept up his attacks on both, accusing the Kuomintang's leadership of living extravagantly and the DPP's Lai Ching-te of having illegally built property.
也不要党政高层吃香喝辣的然后那些基层员工不照顾错了就改掉就好了嘛。不晓得赖清德在，我倒觉得很多事情发生的好做错了，就把它改掉就好了。
When Taiwan's voters go to the polls next month, they'll be presented with 3 different visions of Taiwan's future. One promises a new focus on old Chinese roots, while a second hopes to move away from them. And a third promises an alternative to this two-party tug-of-war that's long dominated Taiwan's politics. With such divergent ideas, the final month of campaigning promises to be a lively one. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
To find out just what's been changed in school curriculum and why, John Van Trieste spoke to cultural critic Michael Fahey.
First of all, could you tell our viewers what has changed substantially in Taiwan's school curriculum in recent years?
There's been a trend towards reducing the amount of classical Chinese in the high school textbook. Until about 20 years ago, it was almost 100%. And now it was decreased this time from about 60% to 40%. In particular, there was an essay by a 17th century Ming loyalist called Integrity and Shame that had been part of the curriculum for 50 years and has now been dropped. And that's what kind of really sparked the recent controversy.
But it isn't as though they're removing classical Chinese from the curriculum altogether.
Absolutely not. That really needs to be emphasized. For English speakers, it would be a little bit like trying to read something between Beowulf and Chaucer in the original. Perhaps another analogy would be that literary Chinese, which kind of refers to the last 2,000 years of Chinese, is kind of like Latin. And then the pre-Qin literature is very much akin to, the role of Greek in the Western world.
Can you tell us what's changed in terms of the history side of the curriculum?
The big difference this time is that Chinese history is still being taught in the second year, but it's now being taught in, that year is being called the East Asian history. So Chinese history is the main subject, but there's also a fair amount about Japan and maybe a little bit about Korea.
Why has the Democratic Progressive Party, under whose leadership these changes have been made, what did they say is necessary about these changes?
They say that they have followed the law and gathered, like for the Chinese curriculum, there were something like 47 experts who worked on the new curriculum. And they had feedback from thousands of Chinese teachers all around Taiwan. And they, tried to shape a new curriculum that would foster critical thinking, the ability to express yourself well in written and spoken Chinese and that kind of thing.
And what's the reaction been from the opposition, especially the KMT?
They think that secretly the Ministry of Education and the DPP are de-Sinicizing Taiwan. And then the politicians have been out there in the last couple days saying that they're cutting off Taiwan from its Chinese roots. But this is happening in a very heated political atmosphere and is going to questions of identity. Are we Chinese? Are we Taiwanese? Are we both Chinese and Taiwanese? That come up every time at election time.
Once again, that was cultural critic Michael Fahey of Forward Taiwan speaking to John Van Tres about controversial changes to Taiwan's school curriculum. The KMT's candidate Hou You-yi has promised he will spend $300 million raising soldiers' wages. As Dash Butler reports, it's part of a broader plan to strengthen Taiwan's defense.
Dialogue, deterrence and de-escalation. That's how Hou You-yi, Taiwan's main opposition candidate for president, hopes to handle China if he's elected on January 13th. Now, Hou You-yi and his party, the Kuomintang or KMT, want to develop drone technology, they want to give soldiers raises, and they want to draft a national security strategy, all with the aim of containing the threat from China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory and regularly sends warplanes flying nearby. Now, the prospect of a war between Taiwan and China would be catastrophic, not just for those two countries, but also for the global economy, which is why this election has attracted so much international attention. Hou You-yi is sitting just behind Lai Ching-te, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's candidate in this three-horse race for the president. He'll hope his promise of dialogue and de-escalation can win over Taiwan's allies and win over undecided voters. But with the election just over a month away, time is running out for him to convince the public he's the man to lead Taiwan to a lasting peace. Patrick Chen and Dash Butler in New Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's presidential candidate numbers have been drawn in a crucial final step ahead of January's elections. Here's Joy Sung with the latest from the Central Election Commission.
Taiwan's edging closer to picking who they want to see succeed President Tsai Ing-wen as she wraps up her maximum 2 terms in office. A lot of local media have shown up this morning at the Central Election Commission as the 3 presidential hopefuls pick their all-important candidate numbers for January's elections. That's essentially the order that their names will appear on the ballot. Different numbers mean different things here in Taiwan, with some considered to be luckier than others. And so how are these numbers picked? Well, by a customary lucky draw. Third-party runners Ko Wen-je and Cynthia Wu from the Taiwan People's Party have landed in slot 1, while the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's Lai Ching-te and Bi Kim Hsiao have drawn number 2. That makes main opposition Kuomintang's Hou You-yi and Cao Cao-kang number 3. All three camps have said they are satisfied with their numbers, and now voters will see these numbers play out in their campaigns, whether that's victory number 2 or everything's okay number 3.
很高兴今天抽到美德双全、稳定向前，代表着胜利的2号。
那1号一定是你最想要抽到的是，那今天有没有带一些什么就是比较幸运的东西？会相信这些吗？
哎，我跟你讲哦，我是蜥蜴人，没有很注重这种东西的，就是一个号码嘛，就给投票总要一个号码让他选的。
And though the international sphere will be looking to see how the three candidates manage self-rule Taiwan's relationship with neighboring China, the Taiwanese people will be eager to see how the three will help on bread and butter issues that will affect daily life here, like housing and labor policies. Now, the next date to mark is December 30th, when the three hopefuls will get to put forth and defend their vision for Taiwan at the televised presidential debate. Joseph Wu and Joyce Sun in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A Chinese rocket carrying a satellite has flown over southwestern Taiwan in space. Taiwan's defense ministry says it was closely monitoring the launch, but a rocket didn't threaten the nation's security. It is China's 5th satellite launch this month, but it's the first to fly directly over Taiwan. Defense experts say these satellites are used for military monitoring. Migrant workers and advocates took to the streets of Taipei to call for government protections and services. Our reporter Tiffany Wong was there.
Protesting in the heart of Taipei, these migrant workers are calling out Taiwan's government for neglecting their needs for years. Alongside activists, they marched from the Migrant Workers Employment Center to the Labor Ministry to demand these government offices provide better public services for workers, including government-to-government hiring and bilingual information. One caretaker from the Philippines who has worked in Taiwan for 10 years says she wants the government to recognize their essential labor and take care of them in return.
We're so disappointed, of course, and we feel that we are not belong to this country. While we are working for them, and you really need to do with this to the workers. Why?
Migrant workers have been officially allowed in Taiwan since the 1990s, but they say that over the years, government agencies have failed to take responsibility for their safety, often leaving them helpless against abuse from a broker system, in which private employment agents facilitate their journeys to Taiwan, charging fees every step of the way, trapping them into a system of debt as they work to provide for their families back home.
So many institutional conventions mention about the government should take responsibility to guarantee the workers cross-border have to have safety channel, including not to be exploited financially or physically or psychologically by the broker or employer. But Taiwan government so far didn't do anything.
There are over 700,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, but organizers say only a few hundred are participating in this rally in Taipei, as they fear repercussions from their employers and even the government. Just another issue migrant workers continue to face as they provide essential services in Taiwan for Taiwan society and industries.
The government has said they plan to introduce an online assistance platform to help employers and migrant workers, and it's promised to investigate agents reported to be breaking the law. But these migrant workers say it isn't enough, and officials here have to do more to make them feel at home. Luffy Li and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up.
This replica of a Hong Kong protest statue is here in Taiwan, along with other artwork that exhibitors hope will get the world's attention back on Hong Kong.
我係潘元良，我又係填詞人啦，我又係寫劇本嘅人啦，我亦都係拍電影嘅人啦。
My name is Casey Wong. I am a contemporary visual artist.
Hi, I'm Shirley Leung from Hong Kong. I am a reporter.
This is what happens to me after that.
問下你係咪一定要咁寫啊？又甚至有啲唱片公司直情就係會覺得哇咁樣，即係佢哋會講話哇好黃喎。
Well, my definition of war, WAR, actually is an acronym. It stands for We Are Ready.
Why did I choose Taiwan? Because it's a society with freedom. It's a free country.
After that, Hong Kongers in Taiwan. Every Friday, 7 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from Taiwan that are a real home run, please download the TaiwanPlus app.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Israeli tanks have pushed into Khan Yunis in southern Gaza in their search for a Hamas leader. Over 600,000 people are sheltering in a city. Regional leaders warn that the conflict could spread and radicalize a new generation. This comes as violence between Iran-backed Hezbollah and Israel escalates at their border with Lebanon. The conflict began on October 7th when Hamas raided Israel, killing 1,200 people. Gaza's health ministry says around 18,000 people have been killed in the fighting since then. The Palestinian baseball team made its debut at the BFA Asian Baseball Championship in Taipei as war and violence continue to rage back home. TaiwanPlus reporter Shivan Pell caught up with the team.
It's been a long and uncertain journey for these Palestinian baseball players. They're here in Taiwan. Despite their homes in Gaza being under attack. They say participating in the Asian Baseball Championship has been a way to help deal with the loss and despair of the Israel-Hamas war back home.
Our brothers and sisters are dying, so it's hard to play. We have fun, but in the back of our mind, we stop. We say, hold up. There's bigger problems in the world. This is a blessing to be able to represent Palestine in our country.
The Palestinian team entered the international baseball arena earlier this year. But the war in Gaza meant many players couldn't make it to this tournament. So the team is largely made up of players hailing from Chicago, home to the world's largest overseas Palestinian community. But the effects of the war have been a lot more severe than some people not being able to play.
It's been very, very difficult. So many people I've met, I know personally, have lost family members. We lost a baseball player from one of the local clubs. He was killed. I have so many friends who family members have died.
Despite these challenges, the team made a strong entrance at the tournament, winning their opening game against Hong Kong. And even though they didn't make it to the final round, they ended with a victory over Thailand. The team's Venezuelan coach says it's a major achievement.
Some teams here in this tournament have been playing baseball for 100 years. In Palestine, the national team just got put together a couple years ago, and the fact that we're here competing already, it's a great honor.
And they have also used their presence here to show solidarity with the people of Gaza.
These Palestinian players are here in Taipei to play in the biggest tournament of their life. For them, the sports is not only a passion, but it's also a platform where they can showcase their patriotism.
The team carried Palestinian flags and wore keffiyeh, a symbol of Palestinian nationalism, not only to support those under siege back home, but also to win the hearts of more people in Taiwan. As the war in Gaza rages on, these baseball players are showing that hope for the future and their homeland lives on. Dolphin Chen, Suing Ling, and Shubham Pal for TaiwanPlus.
Hong Kong's first local elections under new rules, essentially barring pro-democracy candidates, have seen record low voter turnout. Just 28% of registered voters cast ballots in Sunday's district council elections. That compares to a record high of 71% in a last race held in 2019 during huge pro-democracy protests. But Beijing imposed new rules on who can run this year. They also slashed the number of directly elected seats by about 80%. Hong Kong artists are fighting their space for expression restricted at home. To help them find their voices again, an exhibition in Taipei is displaying their works. Louise Watt went to take a look.
For 36-year-old Hong Konger Alric Lee, this exhibition in a church in Taipei is a way to keep his city's spirit alive. Now based in Tokyo, Lee founded the advocacy group that's showing these artworks that convey Hong Kongers' feelings and their fears.
The Hong Kong government is essentially trying to remove the voice of Hong Kong people. And we want to encourage artists, writers, and independent creative professionals to keep voicing their support for Hong Kong.
The exhibition includes winners of the first Hong Kong Liberty Art Prize, set up by Lee's organisation to counter what it says are restrictions on artistic freedoms back home. The winner, a digital art piece that evokes violent memories of a mob attack on protesters and passengers on a Hong Kong subway train. Many artists fled Hong Kong after Beijing imposed a national security law that makes it easier to crack down on dissent. That same law has led to prosecutions of former opposition lawmakers and journalists, and publisher Jimmy Lai, who's accused of colluding with foreign forces and faces a life sentence if convicted. And he's a key part of this exhibition in Taipei. The young Hong Konger who sculpted this work doesn't want to appear on camera because she worries what could happen to her family back home if she's revealed as an artist activist. But she says that people see Jimmy Lai as a saint and she wants to remind them of his vulnerability. So with this work, they see his human side and remember his pain and suffering. The exhibition is moving visitors, both Hong Kongers and foreigners.
Hong Kongers, we know everything is gone, and I hope one day we can rebuild it. So we have to let people from the Western world know we are not defeated by the Communist Party. We are just preserving ourselves, our power.
Hong Kong is something that we've never really have a lot of media talking about in our country. And so deeply, so it's good to have the actual point of view of people that are living through this.
Taipei is just the first stop for these works. Organisers plan to exhibit in London and Sydney in 2024, hoping to further raise the voices of Hong Kongers and awareness of their ongoing suffering through their art. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has been called the most mountain-dense island in the world. On International Mountains Day, Sally Jensen takes a look at the importance of the country's peaks.
Studded with summits, Taiwan is a mountainous country. Some estimates have listed it as the most mountain-dense island in the world.
Mountains protect Taiwan from typhoons, and it's a huge tourist draw. Think about mountaineering, think about geologic life forms, and just sort of casual tourists who like going to the mountains.
The small country boasts 268 peaks over 3,000 meters above sea level, making it a real destination for foreign and Taiwanese climbers alike. For many pleasure hikers, the first stop is here on Yangmingshan for its proximity to downtown Taipei and its geothermal hot springs. But like many of Taiwan's mountains, it also plays an important ecological role, regulating the capital's climate. Yangmingshan buttresses the Taipei Basin from winds and rains coming from the northeast. Its grassy terrain is also home to numerous wild animal species, like macaques and even pangolins. Taiwan's highest peaks lie in the central mountain range, the area where the island's three major river systems originate. Just last week, the first snow of the year fell on Taiwan's Xueshan, or Snow Mountain. The UN's International Mountain Day celebrates the environmental benefits of mountains like these. But as immovable as they look, Taiwan's peaks are facing challenges. Overdevelopment and construction create soil erosion, impacting agriculture and endangering people who live there.
If you build the buildings, if we do a lot here in this area, you can see the mountains is gradually sliding. And the sliding is very smooth, it's quite slowly, but after if it heavy rainfall, the sliding accelerates.
These landslides are becoming a bigger threat during extreme weather like typhoons, which are turbocharged by climate change. Home to many of Taiwan's indigenous peoples, the mountains here are both a lifeline and an increasing danger.
可能还是原住民族的这个居住地，还是以这个山区为主，所以其实台湾的山区其实本来也现在应该也是因为有很多的开发，也因为现在气候极端的变化，所以很多的状况其实都是比过去更严重。
Like others around the world, Taiwan's mountains are under threat from climate change, overexploitation and pollution, making it ever more urgent to preserve these crown jewels of Taiwan's landscape. Justin Wu and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, check these handcrafted reinterpretations of wreaths on display at the Arsenal Gallery in New York. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.